What's going on, creative crew? Welcome back to the channel and another video. So happy to be spending some time with you guys. So I am happily jumping right back into YouTube. I actually had to take a little bit of time off for a short film that I was producing, editing, shooting, acting, directing, pretty much everything. You guys will be getting information on that. But let's go ahead and jump in with the first video on when you should actually be shooting in log format. So as I was scrolling through Twitter, I ran into Dave Mays and he tweeted something rather important. He says, "Shooting in log is for people who want to spend twice as long getting the image to look exactly how the standard profile would have looked straight out of camera." And I agree with him. Roll the intro. Okay, so before we get into the pros and cons of shooting in log, we first have to understand just what the heck log is. It actually stands for logarithmic, and for the sake of time, just know that it makes your image look quite flat. And this is for one very important reason: dynamic range. You see, when you flatten out an image, you get to preserve both the highlights and the shadows in your image, leading to an overall image with more dynamic range. Now, I'm 100% sure that Dave knows this, and I don't believe that he was saying that shooting in log is bad in all cases, as much as he was saying for many YouTube projects, shooting in log is not necessary. And in order to get a better sense of this, we need to look at the pros and the cons. So the downside of shooting in log is actually also the pro of shooting in log. You get a very flat, washed out, colorless, and lifeless image. In order to preserve that highlight information and that shadow information, it has to flatten out the whole entire image. And this leads to three specific problems when it comes to somebody who's either more new or they don't have as much experience in actually coloring the footage. Number one, people don't know how to grade the footage. When you have something that is shot in log, you have to work with it. It's not like you're shooting with a standard picture profile and it comes out colored and already in that Rec. 709 color space. You have to work with it. And most people don't know how to do that. So they just slap a LUT on it and it's just good to go. When you do this, a lot of the time, unless you have actual good LUTs, they end up just looking like you shot it straight out of camera, and then you have to work to process that image to actually export it, which just takes more time. The second problem is that you typically under or overexpose. Now, understand that when you shoot in log profile, things are a lot harder for you to actually judge the values of your image. So it's harder to see whether you're overexposing and underexposing on an image. And that is especially true with Sony cameras. Shooting with log, whether that's S-Log2, S-Log3, and just regular S-Log, it's very difficult to actually tell whether or not you are exposing properly. And the last and final point that I think Dave was hitting on is that for YouTube projects, for talking head projects like this, I don't think too many people on the other side of the camera care. And that's hard to hear. As an artist, we love our work. We love to make sure that it is the highest in quality possible, and we love to make sure that it is the pinnacle of excellence, that it is the top of the top. But on the other side, that creates more work for us, but people don't typically care. They want either information or entertainment, they want to learn something of that nature, and it doesn't require you shooting in log, in 4K, in the best in 10-bit. People don't typically know on the other side what you're shooting in, and most of the time, depending on your niche, people don't really care as long as you can present them with the information that they're looking for. Okay, so with that said, why do I shoot in log most of the time? Well, that's because I have a very quick workflow in order to actually process that footage. I know how to color the footage, it's very easy, and I know how to utilize the zebra, so it takes just as quick as shooting in the standard picture profile. And it does look maybe 3% better, but does that make a huge difference on the back end? Not really. So when are the two times when you should shoot in log? Well, there are really only two. Number one, it's if you want the most flexibility in your color grade. So like I said, shooting in log image looks very washed out, barely any highlights, barely any shadows. Shadows are lifted, highlights are squashed down. It looks basically black and white. But that gives you the ability in post to go and expand that data back out. Therefore, you can actually color it the way that you want to color it. Plus, after you expand that data back out, you might have the contrast, but you don't have the saturation. So you have more flexibility to go around and push and pull those colors where you want. Number 2 is if you need the maximum amount of dynamic range. And this is where people typically get it kind of backwards. Dynamic range doesn't mean if you have a very bright scene, just like these images above. As you can see in this one, I am outside and it is bright daylight. I don't need to shoot log here. There's no need to shoot log here. But in this scenario where I'm inside, well, inside it is darker than it is outside, obviously. The sunlight isn't spilling into my house. So I need to be able to shoot in log so that I can capture both the outside and the inside and have information in the shadow area inside and not clip too many of the highlights outside. And all in all, that is pretty much it. Those are the 2 real scenarios where you should be shooting log. Anything other than that, you can shoot in the standard picture profile if it fancies you, and it will look just fine, especially if you're in a studio setting where you can control the lights. So after all that, do I think that you need to shoot log for every project? Absolutely not. There's absolutely no need to shoot log for everything. If you're filming content mostly as a content creator for YouTube, or mostly are teaching lessons online on an online platform, you can just shoot with a standard picture profile, because most of the time people are there either for you, for the information that you're serving, or for the entertainment that you are providing. They don't necessarily care about an overall artistic goal that you have in mind. That is important, don't get me wrong, but if you're just being frustrated because it's hard to grade the footage, you don't need to do it all the time. You can just shoot in a standard picture profile and people will be just as happy. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end. I'm so excited to jump back into YouTube. I've really been missing it these past few weeks. Thanks for sticking around. Click the like button, click the subscribe button. You know how to do it. Click all the things down there. And with that, catch you guys in the next video.